welcome Steve to Metallarium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about the Within the Rims, this new album, and obviously more things related to the metal world in general. So we are starting by asking, so how are you? How are you do today with
I,
the band and the last years?
great, man. Everything is peachy. I'm good. Everything is really cool, and it's album release day, so everything is great. Really stoked that the album is finally out.
Okay, nice. So now talking about this new album, when do you start writing songs for this new one? Are all songs new, or did you rescue any composition that were left out or previous albums?
Oh no, it's all this is all new. Um, I guess the quick little summary of how this album happened was we did the Blackheart album at the beginning of COVID and never got to tour off of it or anything. And then that had been sitting around for a little while, so it kind of turned into new album time, and we were like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? And I threw out the idea of what about a Phenomena 2? And it kind of was like, oh, yeah, interesting, okay, but nobody really latched onto it. And then the more Joe started to write demos for the new album, uh, it clicked in my head that one of them started sounding like kind of the old Phenomena album. And then I brought it up again, and then the guys started being like, "Oh, that could be a really cool idea." So, um, then once I brought that up again, the guys were like, "Oh, that could be a thing." And then Joe started writing more Phenomena sounding stuff, and it just kind of domino effect into where we are now. So, um, it was just one of those things where it kind of just spiraled and it happened, and I didn't have any of those songs written really at the time. And then once everybody was on board, then the writing just didn't stop. So the the idea was fun and fresh for everybody, so it wasn't like I had Phenomena 2 songs written and sitting around at all. uh it took a little convincing, but the guys were on board really quick, actually, once it started happening. So
Mm. Oh, okay. So I always check in the discography from within the rims, and I saw that you have oh a lot of albums. You have EPs, singles. That's normally compilations that normally a band has during the old years, because especially
right.
when the band starts in 2000, more than 20 years, 23, 21 years ago, you started this band. So, are you always working on a new music, or do you prefer to focus it on it on once you finish in touring, promoting the last album? So, how do you decide when it's time to work on a new songs and a new album?
In one sense, the I'd say that the writing and creativity never really stops. But like right now, for instance, we're kind of just, the new album just dropped this morning, so right now we're not focused on writing new stuff. But I'd say, like, after even a few months of it being out, like, there could be writing for the next one starting, even if we would don't touch it and start recording anytime soon. um I'd say that it's really hard to kind of shut that off, that the creativity just doesn't really have a stopping process in a sense. Like, I've even been driving down the road and I have an idea for lyrics or a concept or something, and I'll pull over into like a parking lot and just type some stuff out on my phone to get that idea out. And then once I've kind of let that flow for a little bit, then I'll just get back to whatever I was doing. Um, so like I said, and right this second, like, no, we're not focusing on writing more stuff, but we already have ideas and thoughts for stuff that we want to do down the road. Um, so I guess no, in a sense, it never really stops. But we do take our time, and I think you get to a point where it's been too long in between albums. I think we're one of those bands that takes a little bit longer in between records. We probably, on average, I would say we release an album every 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years or so, and some bands like 2 years is like a maximum if they don't do it even quicker than that. So we take a little more time with our stuff, but that's just how we do stuff.
Mhm. Okay, okay. So, and how do you feel about this new release compared to your previous one, which came out during a difficult time due to the pandemic, because Black Heart was released 2020 at the beginning
Right.
of the pandemic, and now 4 years later we have this phenomena too.
Yeah. I am really excited about this one. It's a I guess there could be a lot to say about it. Blackheart was my first album with the band. I've been in the band for about 6 years now, a little over that, little about actually probably about 6.5. But Blackheart was my first full length with the band, and I was really happy with that. But I came in at that point in my life. By the time we started writing it, and when it came out, I had been going through a lot of personal stuff. That's why that record is dark and pissed off and sad. There was just a lot there, and I kind of came into the band with all my cards on the table. Um, so with this one, I just wasn't in that headspace anymore, and I that was part of why I pitched the idea to do a Phenomena 2, to do a sequel and write about these comic book characters where I it it just kind of took me to a different place that I was really I enjoyed, excuse me, sorry. Since I was a kid, I've always liked comics and those movies and that kind of stuff. And so to do this album was really exciting. It was a lot of work, but I really liked doing it. Uh, and we're super happy with how it turned out. Um, but again, I just wasn't in the headspace to write another pissed off, angry, sad record. I didn't want to fake any emotions like that. I'd rather it be authentic, like Blackheart was. And so once the guys were on board with doing a Phenomena 2, doing a sequel, I was like, hell yeah, let's do that. Let me dive into that writing process of all these characters and get into that mindset. And it was great. And I had a lot of fun doing it, and it was awesome. It was a great experience.
Mhm. Okay, okay, okay. So there are a lot and there are a lot of things going on in the art, especially in the industry of entertainment in general. So,
Mhm.
and one detail that stands out is that the album that has Phenomena 2, that is a continuation of your album from 10 years ago, Phenomena 1. So, why
Mhm.
do you decide to release a second album with this name? Does it have something to do with this idea of the entertainment industry to release second parts, third parts? As you can see now, Romulus, Deadpool, so now a lot of movies, a lot of entertainment
Right.
errors, sequels of this first
Sequels.
part.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, again, I think that we are in that age of nostalgia where everybody kind of likes looking to the past for stuff, and that's cool. It's fun. So when I started pitching that idea, um, it took a little convincing at first, but not too much though. So once I started saying, hey, what if we actually make this a thing? Let's do a sequel. Um, again, just because of where my headspace was at, but also once I started talking about it more, and the guys were like, "Oh, wait, that could be a thing," because we were gonna do a 10-year anniversary of Elite, but then we didn't get anything lined up the way we wanted to for that. So we kind of inadvertently skipped an anniversary of Elite. So then when I said, "How about Phenomena 2?" Then we looked at our calendars and like, oh, it could be 10 years since the first Phenomena. So if we do a sequel, it'll all by the time we're done with it and it actually gets put out, it could be 10 years since the first one. So doing a sequel and a 10-year at the same time was a really cool idea that kind of just had the stars aligned for that. And that's kind of how that happened. I don't want to say an accident, but it's just the timing was great for it.
Okay, okay. So, um, how do you choose? And for this aspect, how do you choose of the art or the cover art? And what do you try to express with this new cover art in this new album?
So we wanted to do something that obviously connects to the first one and don't stray too far from that. Uh, the original Phenomena artwork was done by Cameron Gray, and it's just obviously very digital and uh pieces all kind of put together. And we didn't want to just copy it per se, but we wanted to recreate it in a little bit more modern way. And so we had an artist named Adam Burke do a hand painting, like a real painting of that. But we said, hey, here's the original, and here's what we want to change, and here's what we want to add to it. So if you look at it, there's a on the original, there's like a tree branch coming out of one side that has leaves and stuff on it. So on this one, we just made it like a withered branch, like just a stick where all the leaves have fallen off. The original hand that was reaching for the timepiece, we flipped it and had a dark, kind of a demon looking hand kind of coming to pick it up. And that represents a couple things. I'd say it's one that a darker version of that album is happening, but it's also a metaphor kind of for the passing of the torch from the first one to the new one. And the album itself being a real painting, and not just digital artwork. And that's not to slam digital artwork. I mean, we've used it for all of our albums, but the fact that it's a real painting this time around is kind of representative of what we did with all the music on this album, is that we put a lot of work into making it sound real. A lot of our albums sound very in a cool way. They sound very precise and uh clean. And on this one, we didn't take as much time on purpose to edit all this stuff. We wanted it to be a little bit more real feeling, with the guitars, the bass, vocals specifically, um, all of it. And so that the painting also kind of represents that, is that it's like a little bit more raw and real version of the next iteration of Phenomenon. So
Mm,
we put a lot of thought into what the album artwork is going to represent, and it's all that stuff.
yeah, yeah, I know that is very related with the first cover, like a hand trying to catch in something with the other hand. So that's very related with the
Hmm.
first phenomena. So,
Yeah.
talking about now about the reception of the fans, because today is the release date for this new album. So, how do you feel? How do you feel the reception of your fans and this and the press to this new album has been so far? What have the reviews been like? Do you recently read reviews or criticism that are online, and how do you take it?
I've kind of prepared myself mentally for some criticism, even when I was pitching the idea to the guys before we even started recording, because like I said, I've only been in the band for a little over 6 years, and Phenomena is before my time, and it's one of the most loved albums in our catalog. So, um, in a sense, I was excited to do it because I knew that I was in a good place to do a sequel for that, because I'm just as interested in comics and those movies and stuff as Tim was when he wrote that record. And I've always liked that record since before I was in the band. Um, so, but I knew though when I took on this task that there were going to be some people that like it's not as good as the first one, and where's Tim and all that stuff. Like that's just going to come naturally with the whole process, and I was prepared for that. Uh, but I wanted to do it myself and do my version of a phenomena. And so far, I do look at some of the stuff. I mean, I can't read everything, but the stuff that I've read so far seems to be very receptive to the characters that I chose. Some of the lyrical content, people are picking up on stuff, and this is one of those things where there's a lot of Easter eggs, so it's going to take some time for everybody to pick up on all the little stuff that we put in there. And you're not going to make everybody happy, so I'm also prepared for, like, yeah, it's cool, but it's not as good as the first one, or it's X, Y, and Z, and that's fine. I'm, like I said, mentally prepared for that. But so far, the stuff that I have seen, people have been pretty happy with it so far. But again, it's we've only had a couple of months, yeah, since June to see some feedback, and now that the actual album has been out for like 6 hours, something like that. We'll see. We'll see. But so far it's been good, and I hope that continues. But we'll see. It's a tough spot. I mean, it's a very beloved album in our catalog, and I kind of am I'm prepared for everything, I guess,
Hmm.
to put it that way. But it's exciting. I was really happy to do this, and I had a lot of fun writing this record. And we'll see. I'm kind of just excited to see everyone pick up on all the little stuff that we took the time to throw in there. So,
Okay, okay. Being a band with the sound of very influence, how do you see the issue of labels? Fans and media always try to label bands and start playing with words like symphonic, progressive, technical. I
mhm.
don't know, a lot of labels according to them. So how do you describe your sounds yourself?
I think it depends on who I'm talking to. I'd say it's probably situational. Uh, the term progressive deathcore has been tossed around a lot lately, which is cool. I mean, we definitely fit into a deathcore category. We could easily fit into a metalcore category. Um, Again, depending on who you're talking to, you could very easily just call it we're a metal band, sure, because we pull from various baseline metal influences, like Metallica, Arch Enemy, uh, and just you could start there, and then you start getting into the subcategories. Cool, fine, gent, whatever. We've been a gent band for a long time too. I mean, it's all cool. I don't particularly care too much about the subgenres that we get tossed into. But I think it's cool though that we are one of those bands that if you toss us into a playlist or on a tour package with bands that are like, deathcore, like we would fit and it would work. If you toss us into more uh metalcore, whatever, it all kind of works. We have bits and pieces all over the catalog that fit with all of these subgenres very seamlessly, I think. Uh so it's cool. I mean, I think sometimes the subgenre discussions get a little out of hand. Like, no, they're this. When you're not even just about us, but in general, uh, they can get a little out of hand. But I take it. I take it with a grain of salt. All of it. It's all cool. Whatever you want to call us, fine, sure. And I'm fine with it. Whatever.
Okay. On the other hand, I imagine that you must also mention sometimes that your sound is reminiscent of certain bands that may have inspired you. But have you ever been told that you sound like your certain band when you really don't?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's. I can't. I maybe off the top of my head, I couldn't really say for sure, but it's one of those things where like the more that you're on one side of the fence and you do it for long enough that you're gonna, especially like if you are the creator of the music, you're gonna be very like where all of your influences come from, and what you're creating and putting out into the ether. So when somebody says, "Oh, it sounds like this," sometimes you're kind of just like, "Nah, not really," but like as long as it makes you happy, cool. If you think it sounds like this, it's not a big deal by any means. It's just it's one of those things where again, I think it's sometimes the subgenre conversations are just too like irrelevant. Like it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of times. Well, they'll say the band sounds just like this, or like we'll get compared to. There, I could say so many bands, I guess, but excuse me, sorry. But then also like my like in on the same coin, it could be like I get told my vocals sound like this, or people say I sound just like Tim. In my head, I don't think I sound like Tim, and that's not a good thing or a bad thing. I think that I do things a certain way, and I have a particular tone to my voice, and Tim had a particular tone to his voice. So when people are like confused, like, "Oh, this isn't Tim," or whatever, I'm like, I've been in the band for over 6 years. I don't. To me, it seems very obvious that we don't sound the same. But again, this is just an example. This is not a slight on Tim. Uh, it's just in my head. I'm like, I don't think we sound that similar. I mean, we sound close enough to where it fits, um, but I don't know. It's one of those things where just like people say we sound like this band, or the guitar sounds like this, or what have you. Uh, sure, fine. If that's what you think, it's all subjective. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, it happens. Uh, it happens a fair amount, sure.
Mhm.
Especially when
Oh,
you sound like when you would have a lot of subgenres kind of mixed together like we do. Sure, that's going to happen a lot.
okay, okay, interesting, interesting. And one thing, talking about the promotion of this new album, what kind of plans do you have for this new one? Embark tours, present more videos, or perhaps you already working on a new album for Within the Rooms? Who knows?
Um, we are doing a handful of dates, kind of here in Texas, Denver, and Oklahoma in October. Me and Paolo, our bass player, we live here in San Antonio. We live in Texas, but the band is based out of Massachusetts. So we're gonna also announce pretty soon some dates up in the Northeast, uh, Massachusetts, Canada, some stuff up there, and then I think we haven't announced it either, but there should be something we at least one thing we're confirming for before the end of the year, and then we're kind of rolling into the holidays around that point. So we'll see what happens after the new year for some stuff. But we're like I said earlier, we didn't really do a whole lot of stuff on the Blackheart album cycle, but we are going to try to do more for Phenomena too. Um, and then there was just a earlier this week on Monday there was a listening party for the album and a beer release. Joe released a Daywalker IPA through his brewery, Tin Bridge Brewing. So that was a cool deal. So we're doing a bunch of stuff here and there, but no giant tour plans just yet. We'll have to kind of see what comes down the pipe right now, but we are going to do some stuff and be a little bit busier than we were for the previous album cycle, though.
Hmm. Okay, okay. And you mentioned one thing is that your previous album is normally the Black Heart didn't have a good promotion because we're at that time we were on the pandemic at that time because
Right.
all live shows, gift shows are released. So how will you focus on the next presentations from the Within the Rings? Will you more focus on this? Will you focus more on the Phenomena too, or perhaps you will promote both albums because the Black Heart didn't have a good promotion.
Yeah, I think we're gonna still do some stuff from Blackheart. I mean, it was well received through streaming and all the and basically every aspect of it. We just didn't play a ton of shows. I mean, we did like a few festivals and some one-offs here and there, but we're still gonna focus on it at least a little bit um because it was the first album that I did with the band. We're gonna still play all the songs that are popular from previous albums, but we do try to focus a little more on stuff that we've been doing lately because you always want to play the new stuff, right? You always want to be proud of the new things you put out into the world, and so we are going to focus on that some. Um, I'd say we are going to focus a little more probably on Phenomena 2 because it's a sequel and a 10-year anniversary since the first one. So um, but we are focusing more a lot on content for that also. We already have the 3 music videos out now. The third one for Demon Killer just dropped today as well. Um, but we're going to focus a lot more on other things that push content for Phenomena 2 than we did on Blackheart. We had some plans to do some stuff, but some of it just kind of fell through and we never got around to it. But this one we're going to be focusing a little bit harder on like playthroughs and um, studio style how do I word it? Like like guitar, like strictly guitar stuff, that kind of thing. We're gonna do a lot more content focused stuff for Phenomena 2 though than we did for Blackheart.
Okay, we're very close to this interview, Steve. And one question that is very related now with one of your styles, deathcore. As you can see around the world, like let's put some of this, like the old era or like the old fans, like the people born in 80s and 90s. don't
Mhm.
doesn't want to hear a lot of stuff for deathcore because for them this kind of sound is very plastic, very overproduced on the studio, according to them. So, but now, how do you feel about the reception of the old era of the death metal fans with the deathcore sound that you preach for this?
It's I think that's always a tough line to walk because it's one of those things where sometimes those people are just like so stuck in that headspace, that time period of like death metal needs to sound like this, or just metal in general needs to sound like this, and like they might appreciate it at a live show or something, but when they listen to an album or watch a music video or something, they're gonna think, oh, it's too polished, it's too clean. And I think there's really only so much even if you're like there's like the whole new wave of deathcore going on right now, right? Like Lorna Shore and bands like them and Brand of Sacrifice and uh Crown Magnetar and Shadow of Intent. All these bands are like very much death metal influence, but you could present them to one of these like old metalheads and they'd be like, no, it's too this or it's too that. And I think there's on some level it's just sometimes you can get through and push them through to get that, but some on another level it's just it is what it is, and just the technology is too good now. It's pretty easy to sound clean and polished, and so you kind of almost have to go out of your way to sound bad in a way. And it's doable. You could definitely do that. I mean, but um I don't know. It's just you don't want to, because in some ways I'm the sorry, excuse me. Um, you don't want to like pigeonhole the old guy that's like get off my lawn, you know what I mean? But because in some ways I'm that guy too. It's just like, oh, back in my day, but I don't know. I mean, there's only so much you can do, I think, to try to convince people like that. It's unfortunate, but I mean, I think you're going to have that with every generation of music that comes along, and I think death metal specifically is some people are like, no, it needs to sound like this. Same with black metal, like it needs to sound gritty and raw and whatever. And if it's too polished, and it's not real death metal and whatever. Okay, fine, if you say so, but it's just I think I think you kind of have to almost go out of your way to make it sound not as great now. It's too easy to make it sound clean. Um, as long as you have a guy that knows what they're doing, sure. But I don't know. It I think it kind of just is what it is. I mean, you take what you can get in some cases. Some people just are not going to have their minds changed about modern death metal. So uh, unfortunate, but you can't win them all.
Well, Steve, the sad times arrive at this interview. Thanks for this interview. It was a really pleasure to talk with you about a lot of things for Within the Rings, this new album, and more things. So congratulations on this new album. It's a really great one because we put a high score on our web. So perhaps do you want to add something to your Latin American fans and obviously Methalarian
Mm.
followers?
Oh, thank you guys for sticking around. Again, I'll say it one more time. I know I've only been in the band for a little over 6 years, but think if you have been a fan for longer than that, thank you for sticking around. Especially the people that have been around since before Phenomena and since, because it's 10 years now. So thank you guys for sticking around. I hope you guys enjoy the album, listening to it, looking for all the Easter eggs and all the fun little stuff that we hid in there. Um, just as much as we enjoyed making the album. So thank you guys. If you haven't watched the music videos for Castle in the Sky, The Last Sun, and now Demon Killer, go check those out. We put a lot of work into those, and we're happy with how they turned out. So go check those out. Listen to the album, and if we do come your way, I would say go to a show, because who knows when we'll be back. That's not me being ominous, but I just said we're busy guys. So if we do make it out to your area, go to the show, because it might be a little bit before we get back to you. So, but otherwise, thank you guys for checking out the new album. Thank you for your time. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate you. It's been great.